This is Titoni, an independent, affordable luxury watch brand based out of Switzerland. And before I move on from what I just said, I want to say it one more time. Titoni is a 100 plus year old entry level luxury watch brand that is based out of Switzerland and is beholden to no one because it is independent. The crazy thing is, if you are in America, there's a chance you have never even heard of them. For instance, step inside a luxury hotel here in North America and you may just find an ad, a wall clock, or even a boutique for Rolex, as it is the #1 selling luxury watch here. But visit China and it is Omega that is the market leader. And in fact, Rolex doesn't even come in second. That prize goes to Longines. Head over to India and Rado beats both Rolex and Omega. The reason I mention this is just to soften you up a bit, to lower the wall, the defensive part of you that says, if I have never heard of them, they must not be any good. Well, I'll let you be the judge. There are roughly 680 watch manufacturers in Switzerland, and of these, only about 100 are independent. And of that 100, only a small fraction have their own manufacturer movement. And this includes the big dogs like Rolex, Patek, Jaeger-LeCoultre, F.P. Journe, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron, Chopard, and yes, Titoni. Introduced in 2019 to commemorate the 100th anniversary, the T10 movement is the brand's first self-developed and manufactured automatic caliber. Just take a look at this beauty. The T10, having underwent testing in 5 positions, is a COSC certified chronometer with a heart beating at 28,800 beats per hour. This movement boasts 32 joules and has an impressive power reserve of up to 75 hours. Titoni really wanted you to stop and admire the architecture of this movement. So they skeletonized the 18-karat gold-plated rotor to make sure that the view was as unobstructed as it could possibly be. First released in the 1919 line, the collection that celebrates Titoni's centennial anniversary. Titoni has characterized the 1919 as the watch with a purist, minimalist, and timeless design. And I would have to say that I agree. If you are into dress watches and appreciate the time, the effort, and the tons of money that it takes to develop a manufacturer movement, when compared to other luxury brands with in-house movements, I would say at just over $2,300, this watch is a deal. Over 100 years, just let that sink in for a moment. Founded under the name Falco and later Falca by Fritz Schlupp in 1919, the company has now been family owned for 4 generations. Falco watches were sold all over the world and even received a contract in 1945 to produce 30,000 units for the U.S. Army during World War II. Although it is not clear how many watches were produced due to the fact that the war ended just a few months after signing the contract. Fast forward to 1950 and Falco would launch Titoni as more of an upscale luxury brand. Falco watches were to keep a stronghold in Europe while Titoni would set its sights on the Southeast Asia market. But by 1981, the writing was on the wall. The future of the company belonged to Titoni, so the Falco name was dropped. There is just one more piece of information that I wanted to share with you. While I was researching Titoni for this video, I could not help but to keep comparing them with the brand Rado. Both brands are Swiss brands that early on followed pretty much the exact same sales path. Both brands were marketed heavy and did very well in Europe and in Asia. I just couldn't shake the comparison, so I went and I took a look, and lo and behold, Rado was started as Schlupp & Co. Schlupp & Co. was a company started by brothers Ernest, Fritz, and Warnes in 1917. That company would later become Rado. One of those brothers, Fritz, would be the same Fritz that just 2 years later would start Falco, which later became Titoni. To me, this makes the fact that Titoni is still an independent brand to this day even more impressive, as Rado, after a few acquisitions, became part of the Swatch Group. So It's my bet that Titoni has had more than a few opportunities to sell out to the big boys. And speaking of the big boys, just check this out. If you want more proof that Titoni is a legit Swiss watch brand, just take a look at Google Maps. This is the Omega Museum. And if we zoom in here, this is the Omega offices. Let me zoom back out. This is the city where the Schlupp family is from. Also the city where they started Schlupp & Co. And this is the Titoni factory over here in Grenchen. The horological history in Grenchen is as heavy as it is in Le Chaux-de-Fonds. If you don't believe me, just take a look a few blocks away from Titoni's factory and you will see Etta, which I would say is just about as Swiss as it gets. Paying homage to all of this history is the Heritage line, blending vintage aesthetics with modern craftsmanship. Titoni's latest creation within this series, and a few of my favorites, are the 1950s inspired chronographs. Coming in at 41 millimeters in a stainless steel case, this watch features a double curved sapphire crystal with an anti-reflective coating. The Arabic numerals on the dial and on the cathedral style hands are both treated with superluminova in an old radium hue, which adds to the vintage vibe. With approximately 58 hours of power reserve, these chronographs are powered by the automatic Sellita SW510 BHA movement. This particular model is equipped with both a tachymeter and a telemeter. And in full disclosure, I had to look up what a telemeter was. And now that I know what it is, I want one. It measures the distance between something visible and something audible. For example, you would start the chronograph when you see me say, hit that subscribe button. You would stop the chronograph when you hear the click of your mouse after doing so.
Just surrender and subscribe.
And if this dial is too busy for you, Titoni has several options, one of which I have here today. And I must admit, it is very, very hard to decide which one I like more. When I first spoke with a representative of Titoni, I was asked if I would like to check any of their watches out. Nothing more, nothing less. I said yes. I emailed them a list of a few of the watches that spoke to me, thinking that they would pick one from the list and send it to me. And, they ended up sending the whole list. So I feel like this video is going to have something for everyone. For instance, if you are like me and you simply never find yourself in a place where you would need a dress watch, then just take a look at this Airmaster. Coming in at $1,395, the Airmaster's roots can be traced back to 1969. Titoni likes to mention that that was the same year the first man walked on the moon. But I am going to just leave that alone because to me there is only one that gets to tie their name to that accomplishment. Honestly, this watch is really, really nice. It has all of the elements of a really cool pilot watch. 40.5 millimeter stainless steel case that is only 9.3 millimeters thick. Has big, fat, in-your-face, legible hour markers, a deep, rich dial, a high-polished handset. The case is beautifully brushed with chamfers that are polished. The same goes for the bezel. The bracelet is next level at this price point. Again, both brushed and polished. I am just going to say it. I think the bracelet is just as good, if not better, than the bracelet on my Breitling Navitimer. And before anyone loses their mind over that statement, I am telling you, hold both of them side by side, and there is no quality gap that I can tell. As I am sure that you know by now, dress watches just are not my thing. My favorite style of watch is a chronograph. The watch that I wear almost every day is my Omega Speedmaster. The closest thing that I may have to a dress watch in my entire collection is my Ball Victory Fireman. But if I was going to add a dress or dressy style of watch to my collection, I would want it to be a watch that still has a sense of masculinity. And I believe that that is exactly what this watch has. To me, the Cosmo kind of has that Datejust vibe in the sense that it could work in a semi-casual type setting, but it could also find itself at home in a suit. I am not going to get into the specs of this watch, as this video is probably already long enough, but I will say that it is a Swiss-made watch by a company with over 100 years of watchmaking passed down through generation to generation, and this watch can be picked up for $1,200. If you look at companies with that type of history, this type of watch, I would have to say that this watch is a deal. I recently asked in my last video what one considered entry-level luxury for a watch, and I just wanted to share a few of those comments with you. Bert Holdback 4959 said, well, most people I have met, an $800 watch I was wearing was already crazy expensive or even luxury. Somewhere between $2K and $3K is where the luxury part starts. Up to that, it is just expensive. Britt Webb 5602, and one of my top comment contributors, I appreciate that, said, as for luxury, I think it's more about refinement, quality, and finishing than just a high price. Case in point, the Venezianico Arsenal is well under 1K, but its looks, design, quality, and finishing are on par with some costing over 10K. So I realize to someone looking at the $1,000, $2,000, or even $3,000 price point, it is a fortune for a watch. But maybe you have reached a big milestone and you want to treat yourself to a nice luxury piece, and spending $7,000 for an Omega, or $10,000 for an entry-level Rolex, that is just not going to happen. For that person, I think Titoni could possibly just be that sweet spot. Now, with that said, I would never tell someone what watch to buy. I would only suggest taking a look. I have learned as a collector, it is a very personal thing. What one person loves, you may hate. So here it is. After all of the praise, I am going to leave you with the bad. But I do want you to take that with a grain of salt. I would say one look at me and you could tell I spend my time in jeans and t-shirts. And to be honest, I don't even own a suit that actually fits me. Personally, I find most of the Titoni collection to be just a tad bit too dressy. If you remember the Breitling Navitimer that I mentioned earlier, I purchased that watch new, and I think I have worn it maybe around 8 or 9 times. And it is for the same reason. So I would say that if you are someone who spends a lot of time in a suit or even khakis with a polo, then I really think that you should give this brand a pretty hard look. I also want to say that that is excluding the Chronographs, which I absolutely love, and I may end up picking one up for myself. This watch will work with a t-shirt all day long. I just want to say thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did and you are not subscribed, just hit that subscribe button. Just do it. You know you want to. I'm James. This is Blue Collar Lux, and I will see you in the next one.